This is Sean with Gate City Foundation Drainage. In this video, I want to talk about some French drains. I want to talk about how I do them and the rationale behind some of the methods that I use. And I think there's been a lot of confusion and questioning about why I do things the way I do. And one thing I do feel like is that these things really work. And so that's what I'm going to be doing in this video, is talking about each of the components, why I do it the way I do it. And then I'm going to go back and revisit most of the French drains I've done and see how they're flowing. A common misconception is that a French drain is a place to send water to. And so I hear customers say, I need a French drain for my gutters. But a French drain is a collection device. It's a system to collect water. So what kind of water is a French drain collecting? It is collecting non-point water. And so, first of all, point water sources would be like a gutter downspout or a stream coming through the yard, something like that, where you can point to it and say that's where the water's coming from. Non-point water is when you just kind of have water everywhere in the backyard, maybe flowing down a slope or maybe coming out of the ground somewhere. And so that would be non-point water. So what we need to do with a French drain is situate it and use it to collect non-point water. In this clip, you can see an area of yard that's just completely saturated with water. When you look around the yard, you see that we are pretty much sitting downhill from this big slope right here. And so what you have going on is a lot of water just flowing down the hill and then standing right here. Here we are on the side. Same thing, a lot of water just standing around here. So this is all non-point water. A good candidate for a French drain. Here's another example of a hill that water is flowing down, and look at all this standing water just sitting right here. This is several days after a rain. Further in the backyard, you can see more standing water. And this water is just leaking out of this retaining wall right here, and it's just standing right here in this one area all the time. So this is non-point water, and this is what a French drain will correct. When looking for the location to place your French drain, you need to keep a couple things in mind. The first thing you need to keep in mind is that water flows downhill. So you want to make sure your French drain is in the low point. And you want to make sure it's in the path of your non-point surface water. And so placing the French drain is absolutely critical to its functioning. So we'll talk more about how you can achieve fall from where you are, because that's another big consideration. If you're down in a basin, a bowl, there's nowhere to drain it out of. And so you've got to be at a low point where your water is going to collect, but you've also got to be at a high point where you can take that water, once it's into a pipe, and take it downhill from wherever you're at. So it gets a little bit tricky. This is a good example right here in this low point. Take a look at this hill that you have. You have a huge hill sloping right down into this foundation. And so you want to situate your French drain right in that low area. Because placement of the French drain is so critically important, I spend a lot of time talking with customers and asking them to give me video or pictures of where the water's coming from, where it's going, that sort of thing. So take a look at this picture here. You can see that from about right here-ish to down over here by the fence, we have water that's flowing across here. And so the water is coming from the opposite side over here at the fence, and it's flowing across here. And so this picture right here tells me that if I put a swath of French drain across there, that will represent a barrier that water cannot cross. And when I looked at this, also this was a low point over in here. And so this picture right here tells me that this is where your French drain wants to be. If you're talking about excavating and trucking in a bunch of gravel and doing a bunch of digging and trenching, then it makes perfect sense that after you do all that labor and all that work, to throw in a quality pipe before you cover it back up. So we only use Schedule 40 solid thick wall PVC pipe for our French drains and for all our other gutter work and drainage work as well. So don't be tempted to use a corrugated pipe for a French drain. They are not the right pipe to use because they just clog up and hold water, and they're just inferior to PVC.
Okay, I wanted to show you really quickly the pipe that we use. So we use only solid Schedule 40 for our drainage install. So here is a nice little pile of pipe, and we purchase this perforated Schedule 40. The problem is this stuff is no longer available from my supplier, and so what we've been doing is we've been making our own perforated pipe. So we string a chalk line, and we use the letters as our first line. So I'm keeping this stick right here. We've been using that as a template, and so we've been drilling our own perforated pipe. So here's a piece right here. That's just a little piece of a nipple that's left over from a job. So let's take a quick look over here. I've got this pipe set up pretty much, so I've been playing around with this for a while. I've got this set up pretty much like it is in the trench. So we have about 1/8 of a bubble or so of fall right there. 1/8 of a bubble of fall right there. 1/16 maybe. There's maybe a 1/16 of a bubble there. There's a 1/16 of a bubble there. There's another 1/16 of a bubble. And there's a 1/16 of a bubble. Okay, so this is my perforated pipe. The holes face down, and you hopefully can see in there, see what's going on in there. And so basically I like this pipe because it leaves an area for debris to roll along. So I just harvested a BB or a marble out of a rattle can. So I wonder if this thing will make its way through that pipe. So here we go. And that's at about 1/8 to a 1/16 of a bubble. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but it's rolling through there. All right, let's see if we got anything coming out over here. I can hear it. Look at that. Okay, so that is why we use Schedule 40 perforated pipe for our French drains, because it is a high quality pipe, and any debris that gets in there is going to get blown out. So there's the marble test at a six. That's not even at a quarter bubble. So that's why we use this stuff. So again, my thought is if you're going to go through all the trouble to dig a trench, haul dirt away, haul gravel in, why not throw a quality pipe in your trench before you cover it up?
I want to show you another very important aspect when you're looking to place your French drain. So this water here, what this represents is it represents water that is sitting on top of impermeable soil. So these native soils here do not let water flow through them. If water flowed through these soils, this water wouldn't be here right now. And so we know that we need to get rid of this soil, get it out of here, and we need to put gravel in its place because water falls through the spaces in gravel. Whereas here, this soil, this native soil, is impermeable to water, and so the water is pooling on top of that soil. So we need to get rid of that soil. So I wanted you to take a look at what's going on here. Here we have wet slop right here, but once you get down a few inches, you can see that we've got dry dirt. And so what that means for a French drain is it means that this is all surface water that's just kind of hanging around here. It's probably flowing down from the hill, and it's probably staying at this level. So when we dig this out and put gravel in here, what's going to happen is all this is going to ooze into the gravel, fill up the trench like it's doing right here, and then it will flood into the holes of the perforated pipe, and then it finds a path of least resistance down to the curb. And so that's how a French drain works. It's used to collect non-point surface water. Here's another really good example. You have standing surface water on the left right there, and as soon as you start digging, you hit super dry dirt. And this is telling you that the native soils here are impermeable to water. So you've got to get rid of that soil. The water will not flow through it. So if you put your French drain in here and then put that soil back on top of it, you'll be in this exact same situation. The water will not flow through the soil into the drain. This is a French drain that I was pretty much working by myself on for the second day. So we had to leave this the first day, and this is what I found when I came back the next day. So just let me pause it real quick there and take a look at how much water is in there. And so those impermeable soils we were just talking about, that soil is what's going to make your trench become a basin. And so the water is going to flow into the trench. It flows through the gravel, and it collects there. It floods up in the trench like it's doing here, and then it finds its way into the perforated pipe with the holes facing down, and then it flows through the pipe. So you can see right there that I left that untrenched, and so that's why it's holding water like that. So that's a pretty cool example of how a French drain collects water into the trench. Once I get that cut out right there, then I will be able to take that water through my pipe down to the curb. This is a project we've been working on, and we're doing a French drain here. And so it's just been raining a lot, so we got stopped after our first day. We got our trench dug. But this really shows how the French drain is going to work before the French drain goes in. And so if this thing is going to work, your water's got to be able to flow downhill by itself. And so take a look at what's going on here. You can see the trench just got a lot smaller because we're going to be doing solid pipe across this section. But it doesn't matter if the pipe or the water is flowing through a pipe or through a trench, it's all flowing downhill. And so that's a cool example of how a French drain works without the French drain in place. So this project, if we can ever get it finished, will be coming up at some point. Before we talk about gravel, we've got to talk about the volume of dirt that comes out. So take a look at the volume of dirt here that's coming out of this trench. Now, we didn't put that much volume of gravel back into the trench. So how can you have more volume coming out than going back? Well, the dirt will fluff up a little bit, so I'll give you that. But I'm digging this with a machine, so it's not fluffing up terribly too much. And the rest of the volume is air, is open space in between the pieces of gravel. And so that's why it's critical to use angular gravel, because angular gravel locks into place. It doesn't shift around. I see a lot of people on YouTube using rounded, washed river rock for their French drains. Now, you would never want to use this because it shifts around and it lets the soil move through it. And so rounded river rock will clog up with soil, whereas angular rock locks into place. Angular rock is the only choice for drainage work. And that's because when it gets compacted, it locks into place and it doesn't flow around. So if you have ever looked into how to build a retaining wall, for example, it says you've absolutely got to use angular rock for that same reason. It locks into place, it doesn't shift around, it provides a stable base. And so when you're doing your French drain, you've got to have that angular rock in there so that the spaces between the gravel pieces are preserved. If you have rock that's shifting around a lot, what happens is the dirt gets into it and can get through it. When the angular rock locks into place, it forms a filter. So the rock is the filter. That's why you use angular rock. Let's take a look at the idea that the gravel has a lot of open space in between it. So what I'm doing here is I'm just filling in that area where we had all that water sitting. And one of the things you're going to notice is I'm putting in a ton of volume here, and the level of the water is not going up by very much. And so if you remember your soil science class or earth science class, you know that the smaller the particle is, the soil particle, the more it holds water, with clay being pretty much the highest water holding capacity. So here you have giant pieces of gravel, and so these aren't going to hold any water. So the water is going to flow right through there. And so as soon as I finish filling up this trench, I'm going to open it up and let it go, and we're going to see just how well water actually does flow through this gravel. And so there'll be no question about it once you see me let this thing go. The idea here was to let this water go after I dug the trench, so I wasn't working in mud. But this is what a French drain, so this is what this, once I get this pipe in here, this is what the pipe's going to do. The French drain is going to collect the water like a French drain should. My solid pipe is going to carry it to the curb. I wanted to show you how strongly that's still flowing there. And that is a testament to the fact that the gravel basically lets water flow through it. And so the water gets into the gravel, it freely flows, gets into the pipe, and then carried away. I get my gravel from the local quarry here, and in this part of North Carolina we've got igneous rock here. So this is all granite that is quarried right here locally for me. So my truck is by far the smallest truck in this quarry, but they're happy to load me up, and I'm over here all the time, it seems like, doing drainage work, getting gravel. This clip shows a crawl space that had been flooding, and so we put a French drain across the front of it right there, and that French drain represents a barrier that water cannot cross. And so you see there that we leave a space of dirt in between the foundation and the gravel. Same kind of thing, water flows through the gravel, so you would never want it up against the foundation. This clip shows very well how water can't cross gravel. So you see all the water sitting there on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side we've got 20 or 30 inches of gravel, and the water can't cross that barrier. The reason water can't cross gravel is because water falls through gravel. And so this is something that can be useful if you're trying to collect water into a trench, as in a French drain, but it can be very, very bad if you put gravel all the way up against your foundation. So you would never, ever, ever want to put gravel all the way up against your foundation, because the water flows and falls through the gravel. And so take a look at this clip where a previous French drain was installed a few weeks before I came by, and it just made things 10 times worse, and the homeowner was just at a complete loss. She didn't know what to do. She was being told different things from different people, and she had spent a bunch of money, and her basement, her daughter's bedroom, was flooding worse than ever before. And perhaps most importantly is the landscape guy put gravel right up against the house. And so you know the water flows through gravel, so by putting it right up against the house, that's just literally letting the water go right through there. And so this French drain is just, it was inferior products, and it was installed incorrectly. After you lay your first layer of gravel in the trench, you want to get that sloping down and that perforated pipe sloping down to about an eighth of a bubble or so, maybe even a 16th of a bubble going downhill. And so what you don't see in my videos is just how much time we spent. This is a 25-minute clip right here that I've sped up. And so we spend a lot of time working on this to get it right. It's got to be right for it to flow right. Your perforated pipe needs to be just about level. So we slope it downhill, maybe a 16th of a bubble or so, maybe an eighth of a bubble. The reason we do that is because when the water floods into the trench, the water is going to be level. So if you have your pipe sloping down way too much, then the water that's in the uphill side of it's not even going to be able to get into the pipe. So that French drain needs to be sloping very, very gradually, almost level, for it to be completely utilized for absorbing water from that French drain, from that trench, as the water floods up. Again, because the water is going to be flooding up at a level, the water is level. Here we are at the end of a French drain, and we're just transitioning into solid pipe. And so we're just realizing that this outfall here, that this solid pipe is nowhere near dropping the way it's supposed to. In fact, it's sloping in the wrong direction. And you don't see this in the videos. You see how that thing is sloping the wrong way? You see how we're standing there and we're both kind of upset that we're going to have to redig this thing. We've already dug it once and now we got to go back and redig it. And so that outfall has got to be a full bubble for the French drain to work. The water's got to have a path to get out of the French drain very, very quickly. Here's some third person of me talking to the camera there and showing you that each one of these fittings is dropping at a full bubble once we're leaving the solid pipe here. And so every one of my workers has a level. And when you put a level on a pipe and it says it's falling, you know you're good to go. Unless the level says you're falling, you got to redig it. This next clip is from our most recent French drain, and so you've seen most of this clip already. But watch what happens after I get my level on the pipe that leaves the Y. So I find out that it's leveling out, and what you didn't see in that picture is that we had to rip that pipe back out of there and cut it down a little bit more until we got a full bubble. I just didn't get a chance to film it. And then we're transitioning into solid. Once we get out of the French drain, we're going to aggressively fall. So you can see now we're at a full bubble there, right there on that coupling, or that Y. And we're trying to maintain a full bubble the whole way down. Hang on guys, this thing is flattening out a little bit. It may be tempting to just throw a pipe in a trench and cover it up and get paid and leave, but it's not going to work. So I found that with drainage work, you really can't fake it. If your crawl space is flooding before the drainage system goes in, it better be not flooding after the drainage system goes in. There's just no way around it. So you have to get that pipe right. And even though we oftentimes have to rip the pipe back out of the trench and retrench it by hand, I still think it's easier to do that right then at the time than it is to have the system not work, have a customer that's not happy, have to come dig the whole thing back up again. So it's just easier and better for everybody to get it right the first time. So that's what we try to do. The most ideal way to put in a French drain is to have it be open on both sides. So think of like a horseshoe around the back side of a property. But in the case where you can't do that and you have to have it stop basically at the end, we put in a cleanout. And a YouTuber early on named Bob the Slacker suggested that we drill some vent holes in there, and I completely agree with that. So that's what we do now, is we drill vent holes in our plugs on the cleanouts. So there's our cleanout, and that's also, since we drilled some holes in it, it's also acting like a vent for the top of the French drain. And we've got our two cleanouts right here. Of course, we drill holes in those to vent it. Whether or not you use fabric around your gravel in a French drain is probably the second most polarizing topic on YouTube, right behind PVC versus corrugated. So this is just my opinion on it. My opinion on fabric is the fabric is like a millimeter thick, and it seems to me that a 1 millimeter of fabric would clog up way more than several inches of gravel would clog up. And so my philosophy is preserving the flow of water. And we already talked about how the faster the water flows, the larger the particle it can carry. So if you have water that's flowing really hard, it's going to carry more debris away. If you slow that water way down, try to make it go through a piece of filter fabric, the filter fabric's going to clog up, the flow is going to go down. So that's why I don't use filter fabric. I think it restricts the flow too much. This next bit of advice goes back to the fact that a lot of people think a French drain is a place to send water to. So I've seen over and over and over again where they dump their gutter water into a perforated pipe that is then buried along the foundation. So you would never, ever want to do that. Once you have water in a pipe, keep it in a pipe until it's gone and out of the way and someplace where it's going to not cause any more problems. So you would never, ever, ever send water that's already in a gutter pipe into a perforated pipe. Even though it may be tempting if you've got a perforated pipe, a French drain, and you're trying to catch a gutter right by it, you wouldn't want to send the gutter water into the perforated pipe. That would be counterproductive to what a French drain does, which is try to get water out of there. We just turned this corner, so I wanted to take a look at what's going on here. So this is our perforated pipe, and this one is our solid pipe. And so it may be tempting to drop that gutter water into the perforated pipe, but my philosophy is if you've got water that's in a pipe, which is the hard part, keep it in a pipe. And so you already saw over here, there's our clean out for the French drain, and we drill some 3/16" holes for venting in there. And then this is just for the gutter, and it passes right by it. So you saw us messing around playing with this pipe. The solid pipe there has to be falling. The French drain, and the solid pipe has to be falling about a quarter bubble. The French drain, the perforated pipe, wants to be falling maybe about a 1/16 of a bubble. And the reason is because when the water floods into this trench, water is going to be level. So if your French drain, if your perforated pipe is falling too much, it's not going to be level like that. So coming across this corner here, we worked really hard. We want to make sure that once we pass and turn the corner, that everything is falling really hard, and what that does is that gives a really easy escape route for that water. So starting with this coupling, this long sweep 90 right there, we're falling a full bubble everywhere. So you can see that falling a full bubble everywhere, and you can see on down to the creek. Take a look at this drainage system that this homeowner recently had installed. She paid a lot of money for this drainage system, and her crawl space is still flooding extremely bad whenever it rains. And so I wanted to show you here. What they did here is they took this into a perforated pipe, and this was all buried. We just uncovered it. So what this type of pipe does, is it takes the tremendous amount of water coming off the roof, and it puts it underground, and it's got nowhere to go because it's not daylighting out to anywhere, and it's just seeping out of the pipe. So you never, ever, ever want to use perforated pipe after you've caught water in a pipe, in a downspout. You never want to put it into a perforated pipe. A perforated pipe is used to collect water, not used to disperse water, especially underground, especially near the foundation. I have a lot of people commenting on the appearance of my French drains after we're finished, because we do take gravel all the way to the surface. We don't bury the French drain in dirt and wrap it up in fabric. Again, we emphasize the most possible flow. So it is a consideration. Are you more interested in results and getting the water out of there, or are you more interested in how it looks afterwards? And so my customers are usually experiencing severe drainage issues. Usually their crawl space is flooding. It's a real estate deal that's trying to close. Their land is washing away. They're experiencing severe problems. And so every one of my customers has been fine with leaving the gravel all the way to the surface. So they may plant some plants around it. They may put some natural stone over top of it, some more decorative stone. They may put some paving stones, make it into a walkway, make the French drain into an edge because it is a straight line. So I just wanted to comment on that really quickly, that the appearance is an issue, but in the cases where I'm actually moving a tremendous amount of water, customers have decided that results are more important than appearance. And this most recent French drain I did, the homeowner texted me back and said she had given me the go-ahead to do it. Called 811, got her on the schedule. She texted me back. She said the husband didn't want gravel all the way to the surface. And I pretty much texted her back and said, I don't really know of another way to do it besides gravel all the way to the surface. And I left it at that. And I kind of implied that I didn't want the job if she wanted me to bury the drain in dirt. And that's been the case with other customers too. If I don't feel like I'm going to get good results, I'll pass on the job. So again, we emphasize results over looks. I want to end this video by taking a look at some of my French drains that I've previously installed and going back and taking a look at seeing how they're doing. So I know I've talked about a lot of things in this video, and these are really my opinions, and so of course opinions vary, but one of the things I wanted to do with this video is I wanted to back up my practices with results. So I want to go back and see, okay, do these practices really work? Are these French drains really working? Are they still flowing after the install? So let's take a look. Here I am at another French drain I did. Now look at this one. This one's flowing as well. So that much water is just now finding its way out of here. This was the French drain that we did. These are some friends of mine. So Harvey, my concrete guy, poured the slab. They had this built. And that was our French drain across the front of their shed right there. Hey, Sarah.
Hey.
How's it going?
All right. How about you?
Good. How's this French drain working?
Great. We hadn't seen any water up under there.
Haven't seen any water since we did it, and it's trickling out over there.
Huh?
The water's trickling out.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. We hadn't had any problem with it.
That's what we want to hear. Tell us what used to happen here.
The water used to come up in here, flood up
And
under
it would
here,
just
go up under
right
there.
here and just run up under that
You'd
building.
see it all the time.
Okay. So we put our French drain in right here,
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, and that's
and now that water's
yeah, it's dry up
out
under
of
there.
here. Okay.
It's dry. You can see it's dry up under the building there.
Yeah.
Sean.
Yep.
Yeah, it is.
Take all the pictures you need to. That's helped us a lot.
It sure
I mean,
has.
This is that job where we did a French drain and a patio with a big channel drain in the back of it. So take a look. Look at all that water coming out of there. That is a lot of water. And there's the channel drain right there. So there's a bunch of, or that's the French drain right there. There's a bunch of water coming out of that too. And take a look at this yard compared with this yard. So that right there is the competitor's French drain. And here's our French drain. Now, it does have gravel all the way to the surface, so we're going to do something here that's a little bit more decorative. But the point is, when you put gravel on top all the way to the surface, it flows like mad. and that's what it's supposed to do. This is a job where we did a French drain on this side of the house. It was part of a real estate deal. And look at what we got going on here. So that is a bunch of water coming out of there. And this side of the house, this is all French drain. So this is all non-point water. There's no gutters hooked into this side of the pipe. So that's all water that used to be landing back there and flooding their crawl space. So that's pretty cool. Now this side is hooked up more to gutters. So we got a few more gutters right here. And look at all that water coming out of there. So it's probably been, I don't know, over a year since we did that one. And no curbs here. So the outfalls look kind of bad, but they were much more worried about getting the water out of here and getting the deal closed than in what it looked like. So we were good with that, and the sellers were too, and the buyers were too. I just wanted to mention really quickly on that last clip, the inspector came back out after we had finished our drainage work. It'd probably been about a week or so since we finished the work, and we threw in some air movers to help blow out the crawl space and dry things out. But it had been pouring by the time the inspector came back out there, and he came back out there during the pouring rain, and there was no water in the crawl space. And he was so impressed that he got my card, and the seller's agent got my card as well as the buyer's agent. So, like I said before, you can't fake these results. Either the crawl space is flooding or it's not. This is a job where we did a really big French drain. His basement was flooding. So let's take a look at that outfall. So look at all that water coming out of there. So that's all water that was landing in his basement, and it's been, I don't know, a couple of summers since we did that job. So that's always a fun one to revisit too, because it's always gushing. This is another French drain we did a while ago. And it looks like they put up a fence and some other cool stuff since they bought the place. But anyway, take a look at this outfall. So look at all that water coming out of there. And if you remember, that's all water that was landing under their deck back there. And so this was another one that was part of a real estate deal. So that one's been working really well. I know I was just out here yesterday, but it's been raining all night, and it's been raining for about 2 days. So I wanted to take a look at this outfall and see what it was looking like. So again, this is just that short French drain there. It was about 30 feet with 2 legs of perforated pipe. So no gutters going into here. Look at all that water. And that's all water that was running under their stairs, under their deck, across their yard, and then across their driveway. So that is a lot of water, and that's a good testament that that French drain works really well for collecting non-point water. This is an outfall that I like coming to. So this is one of our early drainage systems from a couple summers ago. So let's see how our pipe is doing. Look at all that water. And this homeowner has reported back that she hasn't had a lake in her backyard ever since we put the system in. So I always like coming out to that outfall because it's always gushing. I'm going to end the video right there. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I'd like to thank you for watching it. And everything I've talked about in this video, I really wanted to back up with demonstrable evidence. So flow. Are these things really flowing? And so keep in mind that I'm here in the southeast, and so these practices are working from our soils here. Our soils are mostly clay, and so if you have soils that are sandy, you may be doing things differently. So keep that in mind as well. Another thing I want to mention is if you like this video and would like to see me talk about maybe like channel drains or catch basins, I've been thinking about doing a video on those two topics as well, similar to this, where I talk about the ideas and theory behind it. So let me know in the comments if you have any comments about this video or questions about it, and I'll try to address those. Thanks again.